Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Naven Reacts at this point. And today, we are going to be reacting, downright perceiving, another Shoe on Head video. Oh boy, I wonder what sort of nonsense I'm going to be exposed to this time. So, I've covered a lot of videos by Shoe. Your always topical subjects, as given by the fact that it's always Shoe. Shoe just covers a lot of interesting topics, ranging from politics to the cultural and societal issues. But I usually end up getting a little bit heated in certain places and instances of the video because, I mean, it's hard to not get annoyed seeing just how much people have utterly missed the point. But that's neither here or there. But yeah. So this is Why Do Women Hate Sydney Sweeney by Shoe on Head. I think I have a pretty good idea of where this video is gonna go. But if it's gonna go in any sort of knowing Shoe, she's gonna bring up a lot of interesting topics in interesting points that kind of highlight why it's so weird to see women constantly hating on other women because of either attractiveness or perceived some type of perceived nonsensical issue that just isn't there, right? Because the biggest problem that I see usually from these social media spaces, always, especially when it comes to women, is that they either overconflate a particular issue or they're reading too hard into the thing when no one is thinking about it in that specific way. And I see it all the time in a lot of other places, right? Like, in my attempts to understand the sexes back when I was researching why the dating market was such shit, because, at one point I wanted to get into the dating market, but then seeing all of the issues that were there, I'm like, I'm not touching that. I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole, but otherwise, like, in my attempts to understand the female mind and the things they tend to gravitate towards and the things that they like versus the things that they don't like, I realize that women are just like life, right? Everything is whimsy until it suddenly decides it wants to kick you in the ass for a little bit and take you down a little bit. It's usually how it goes. But otherwise, yeah. This is going to be an interesting video. Please like, subscribe if you haven't. If this is your first time seeing Shoe on Head, which I kind of fucking doubt it is, but hey, if it's your first time watching Shoe on Head, please go support the original video, and please feel free to support my videos. Please feel free to support me as well. Or even leave a comment down here in the description below in her video. We want to make sure she gets some decent traction. But otherwise, yeah. Let's just go ahead and get right down to it.
Been living under a rock, you probably haven't heard that Sydney Sweeney was in an American Eagle commercial.
Jeans are past.
There we go.
So if you've been living under a rock, you probably haven't heard that Sydney Sweeney was in an American Eagle commercial.
Genes are passed down from parents to offspring, often determining traits like hair color, personality, and even eye color. My genes are blue.
Sydney Sweeney has great genes.
So I've been seeing a lot of discussion around this particular ad campaign, right? And I'm not gonna pause this. Well, I did pause, but I mean, I'm not gonna dredge up on this too much. It's nothing different. I've seen commercials like this all the time. I used to, anyways. And to be fair, Arby's used to do commercials like this. They were notorious for it. There's a lot of places that used to do commercials that are kind of like this. Nobody really had a problem with it. Women seem to have had a problem with it for reasons that is fairly obvious. I don't think that needs too much unpacking. I just find it funny that we're going back to it nowadays instead of continuing the trend of just making not so interesting commercials. And it's a change that I actually appreciate.
Get it?
The reaction.
Jeans? Because she's attractive? Yes. And she is. I can see why men like her. She has a really cute face and a nice body. But personally, my favorite thing about Sydney Sweeney is that she's a Nazi. Did they mean to include a bunch of Nazi dog whistles in this? How the f did she agree to this? Actual Nazi ad. The only way Sydney Sweeney would be okay with doing an ad like this is if she was a Nazi.
This is Nazi shit.
Yeah.
Stop the ad! That is being racist!
Some of you guys might be too young to remember, but back in the day when an ugly girl was jealous of a pretty girl, she would simply call her a whore. But that's a good thing now, so we have to call her racist. I am going to be completely honest, I have no idea what movies Sydney Sweeney is in. All I know, she is a very popular...
You know, why is it, right, that we have an entire movement in Australia that runs counter to the porn industry, right? Like, let's just call a spade here. We have an entire group over in Australia that made a name for itself for trying to get payment processors, according to them, to cancel certain games off of Steam and get them delisted, right? How is it that we have a group that exists just to make things that don't even matter to people an inconvenience, but they don't at all care about the fact that there are literal children whoring themselves out on OnlyFans? Or that there are mothers who will literally sell off their children for a quick buck, or among other things, right? How is it that we have groups that exist to be just really fucking annoying people for a lot of the unnecessary reasons, that is, just targeting stuff that doesn't even really affect or bother anyone outside of the people who consume them? And yet, right, we have literal industries that profits and gain from dehumanizing and turning people into literal objects. You think that would be the most important topic of discussion? You think they would just go after the literal porn industries that use real, actual people? And we all know what happens to these quote-unquote stars and actors after they get run through the ringer, right? They literally, I've seen this story enough times to know that most of them do not ever recover from it. I mean, like, there's been plenty of stars and quote-unquote actors who have literally became poor and destitute as a result of having left the industry. And there's a few good reasons for this, right? Because they don't get the respect from society that you would think that in a more progressive society that we live in that likes to put people on a pedestal who actually choose to be so empowered as to want to willingly shed their clothes and throw their bodies around. You know, like, in a society that actually glorifies this kind of shit sometimes, you think that we would be more open and accepting to want to hire people who are like this, right? That's not the case. And then what ends up happening, right, is that nobody wants to marry these people because, you know, again, they've been through the ringer. You know, like, if I can, it's the same thing it's the same equivalency that I used in another Shoe on Head video with the analogy that I used of the village toothbrush. If everybody uses it, then it's really, then it's not really something you want to use exclusively, right? It's not something you want to use exclusively. Back in the day, right, you know, like, nobody had their own personal toothbrushes. They had a single brush, and they would use it to brush, and everyone would use it to brush their teeth, and it was a publicly available service. So, it's kind of wild to think, right, that, you know what, I'm just going to leave it there. Point being, it's just dumb. We live in a dumb society. We live in a society filled with idiots and Karens who care way too much about the dumbest shit. And then the things that they could be caring about, they don't even bother to focus on. Instead, they go after readily easily available things instead of going after the things that actually matter, right? They like to punch down instead of punching up, right? Especially when it comes to actual issues, which is even weirder to even think about. It's like, oh yeah, I could go after these industries that actually profit off of actual human suffering, or I could just go after the stupid fucking video games that exist primarily just to, like, that exist primarily for the sole benefit of just pleasing an audience that would otherwise could be harmed by this, or, you could just, it doesn't matter, right? It just doesn't matter to you what people do in their spare time, right? And if it's not hurting anyone, why even bother? Other than the people who consume it. And the people willingly choose to do this. So it's like, why even bother? There's a funny discussion to be had here. And I don't think we're ready to have that discussion as a society yet.
Popular celebrity, and I always see discourse on Twitter about her being mid. What is wrong with you people? Who is not mid nowadays? I saw Anne Hathaway get called mid the other day. Anne Hathaway. If these women are mid, I'm like a sub-zero. I'm like a -2. I am like a horseshoe crab on the bottom of the ocean. Horseshoe crabs are pretty base, though.
I wonder if the people who are calling them mid because of their personality rather than their looks. Because it's hard to call these women mid if we're just talking about physical appearance-wise, unless we're talking about the actual person, and in which case, yeah, their personalities could be mid. I mean, like, we're talking about fucking celebrities, for God's sake. Their personalities are going to be mid as hell, because they live lives so deeply, extravagantly different from ours. And it's all based off of luxury and among other things, right? Like, they have a vastly different lifestyle than most normal people. It's unbelievable most of the time. And I don't really put I don't put anything these people say on any sort of pedestal or value because of just how different it actually is. Like, they don't understand struggle. At least not the struggle that most people have, right? Like, most people struggle just to make sense of their lives, to just go about their every day-to-day business. These people, their biggest struggle is just finding the time to go and basically visit the Bahamas. It's like, their struggle is to go and basically have more villas and more vacation homes than they know what to do with. Their biggest struggles could be just wanting to have their own private island. It's literally, their struggles are so different from most normal people, from the rest of the world. I don't really put these people's opinions or at all, I guess you could say hot takes, on any sort of any sort of credible level or value. It's weird that there are some people who do think like this. Like, I don't care how my fucking celebrity actor thinks about certain political issues or societal cultural issues. I care more about what they're actually doing versus the stupid shit that they're saying online. And you know that thing is going to go through, like, an advisor or some type of PR, some sort of PR representative. Just like, should I say this? Is it alright for me to say this? Do I need to tweak this a little bit? Like, they can't afford to shoot themselves in the foot, so to speak, by saying something that comes off a little off the cuff, right? Like, they can't actually be themselves. They are regulated to be a facsimile of themselves, at the best. And at worst, they're just living fake-ass lives that doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things to most people, but they put so much value into it. Some of these people put so much value into a celebrity's life and lifestyle that it makes me wonder if these people have actual mental issues. Anyways, I'm getting into a tangent, but point being, I don't really care for this shit, to be honest.
445 million years, no evolution. That's me. millions of years on YouTube, no evolution. Sydney Sweeney has like a fun, bubbly personality. She seems like she enjoys being feminine, and it seems like she doesn't hate men, which is a big plus. She really plays into the like, I'm a hot blonde bombshell, I have big titties thing, which, are we back to liking titties as a society? Didn't Kim Kardashian deflate her ass recently? That's how I knew the ass fad was over. The fall of Kim Kardashian's ass and the rise of Sydney Sweeney. Besides, ass, no, I don't objectify women. I respect women, okay? The only thing that matters to me is a woman's
Maybe Kim Kardashian saw the writing on the wall, and when she was getting compared to actual fuck-ups within the cosmetics industry, right? You know, she decided to tone it down a little bit and go back to norm, go back to standard, right? Because, you know, at some points, right, you can only get away with being compared to a literal blow-up doll that it eventually starts to feel a little bit insulting, right? It feels just a tad bit insulting, just a wee bit, right? Just a wee bit. I mean, everybody compared to some of the craziest things they would see on people's faces and body types to be literal Kim Kardashian levels of, I'm going to look like a plastic doll as humanly possible without just directly calling someone a Barbie doll. And it's, I mean, again, there's something to be said about these things, but I don't think we're ready to have that discussion.
Mind. And thighs. What is, like, the male body equivalent to this debate? Abs or arms? Personally, I love
No, it's the abuse of steroids, the overemphasis placed on wanting to achieve a physically impossible physique that requires so much bodily pushing and strain that it practically kills you. I mean, there is an equivalent to this, but it's so unhealthy that it's self-destructive, right? Like, see, you would argue, right, that putting plastic in your body is self-destructive. Have you seen some of the things guys would do just to make themselves look less, to look bigger, to look more buff? Like, we have people out here who think it's totally fine, who thinks it's totally, like, and like, I wouldn't even say sane, like, it's totally reasonable to want to inject a ridiculous amount of oil into their arms so it just looks puffier, right? It's like, what the hell does this serve? You look like someone who's on chemotherapy, alright? I've seen people with chemotherapy with balloon arms that are this bad, and it's... Why would you want to have that kind of shit in actuality? I don't understand it. And I don't think I ever will. Because I'm not someone who's that self-conscious about their appearance. Alright? I have almost an Asmongold-like body, except I'm a lot scrawnier. You know, like, I don't think of myself as being, like, the most healthiest physically, or even the most physically capable of individuals on the planet, but god damn it, if I'm going to be pushing myself to be something that I'm just clearly not, and even if I was, I'm gonna go for something that's at least reasonable and that's well within my means, and not something that's beyond my comprehension, or is just literal fucking fictional hero level, He-Man levels, comic book superhero levels of just massive physique, just pure masculinity. It's just weird. It's just weird. I don't understand it. It's just weird.
Forearm. I love a good, nice, thick, manly wrist. And you know what looks great on a wrist? A watch. Which brings us to today's sponsor, Holtzkern. So let's quickly give them a shout out before we get into today's video, shall we? Holtzkern is a young Austrian company that creates unique watches, jewelry, and accessories using all natural materials like wood and stone. Their high-quality timepieces come in various designs for both men and women, making them the perfect choice for any style or occasion. All of Holtzkern's products are manufactured in small quantities to ensure responsible and ethical production, while making sure each item is built to last. I personally love the kaleidoscope watch with the little flower design on the pearl dial. I think it is so beautiful and so cute. I'm obsessed with it. The glass is made of sapphire crystal, making it scratch resistant, while the strap is crafted from koa wood, and it's water resistant as well. There's also the Moonrise watch, which is made from genuine white marble and stainless steel. It shows the weekday, date, and even the current moon phase, which is really cool. I think all their products make very beautiful gifts, and since they're all made from natural materials, they're all very unique. All their items come with a 2-year warranty, and ordering online is super easy with free worldwide shipping within 5 to 9 business days. And if you're in the US, don't worry, Holzkern handles the custom feeds for you, so no unexpected drama there. Just click my link in the description below and use my special discount code SHOE to get 15% off your order. Plus, if you additionally sign up for their free premium club membership, you'll get access to exclusive products, special discounts, and early pre-sales. But if you only want to check things out for now, no pressure, you can just sign up, come back later, and you'll still get a special discount on your first purchase. So if you're looking for a unique gift or just want to treat yourself to a nice watch, I highly suggest checking out Holzkern. Big thank you to Holzkern for sponsoring this video. And now, let's get back to it. My jeans are brown.
Is that Mediterranean lore that you were dropping in the last one?
The woke outrage over Sydney Sweeney's ad has gone from, well, bad to worse.
Some people have taken issue with the phrase "great genes" being used over images of a blonde, blue-eyed woman.
If Sydney Sweeney is a registered Republican, I think her ad is fantastic. Okay, thank you very much, everybody.
TikTok and Twitter absolutely.
I like how the man hasn't even seen her ad or didn't even know who Sydney Sweeney was prior to that interview. But the moment he heard that she was Republican, he's just like, oh yeah, now I love her ad. Her ad is amazing. It's like the most obvious, completely, like, not invisible thing I have ever heard. It's just like, oh yeah, now I care. I love that interview. It's that Donald Trump really is just unironically, unapologetically just an asshole. This is why people like the guy, right? Even if you're someone who doesn't particularly like the Donald, you have to admit there is something to be said about a guy who just does not give the slightest fuck and will just do things or say things simply because it's funny, or simply because they know it'll piss off a certain sect of the audience, right? Like, I like the fact that he's willing to just be unapologetic about the way he looks and views the world in such a way to where, like, he doesn't care if he gets bashed for it. He just does it. He just does it. He doesn't pander. He doesn't play any sort of game. At least not typically. Like, at least when it comes to certain interviews, and when it comes to certain questions, like, he's just very frank up front about how he looks at things. And that's kind of the thing that people like about the guy. The only thing that makes us question him now is the whole Epstein thing, and we're not going to get into the Epstein thing, because the turnout for that is fucking stupid. And we still didn't get anything out of the whole Epstein thing, despite the fact people made a big fucking deal about the Epstein thing. It's crazy. I'm still not going to forget that. I'm still not going to forgive nor forget that. But, one day, man, perhaps, somehow, someday, maybe we'll get an actual conclusive resolution to the Epstein Island in the case of a guy who literally trafficked humans for the services of some of the world's most powerful people and individuals. But, yeah, that's neither here or there. And I only know that much about the whole Epstein thing. I don't know too much about the nitty-gritty details, but I'm sure the guy's probably been up to some more crazier shit than that. I wouldn't put it past him.
Absolutely blew up with thousands and thousands of people calling this ad fascist propaganda. Yes, they literally took the jeans and jeans pun to be some kind of Nazi dog whistle, because Sydney Sweeney is an attractive blonde-haired, blue-eyed woman, which apparently has been an extinct species for so long in advertisement that when people saw this, they got scared and thought they saw the ghost of Hitler. Is Sydney Sweeney a Nazi? No. But do these people kind of have a point about this ad? also know they are unwell. But let's hear them out.
We're on the same page on that one. For a second there, you had me going there for a second. It's just like, wait, are you about to tell me that there is something to dissect here? No. Okay, good. Because there isn't. There really fucking isn't. Alright, I've seen these ads get talked about, and I've seen these ads enough times to know that there is definitely nothing nefarious behind it. It's just a funny play on words. It's not meant to be taken so literal or seriously, and the people who do are just fucking retarded. Alright, let's just call a spade for once. These people are just dumb. I don't take the opinions of dumb people very seriously, and neither should you. Most people should not take the opinions of people who are willing to call other people names seriously. You've already lost the argument when you're already throwing shade. That's how you know someone's lost the argument. When they start losing the argument is the moment they start throwing shade. I've noticed this. I pay attention to this shit all the time. And so as soon as you get them to start throwing shade, to start calling people names, to start trying to degrade or somehow, what's the word, denigrate the person that they are debating or arguing to or arguing with, right? They've already lost. They've lost, and they're losing the plots even further. At that point, you might as well just let them bury themselves at that point, right? Like Tommy Law. Consistently losing the plot, consistently burying herself into this hole she has created for herself. She just needs to get into the casket so she can finally put herself to rest, for God's sake. I'm waiting for the day when all of these people can basically do the same thing. And you know, the only way these people are going to stop being relevant is if people stop engaging with the people who are trying to make themselves relevant. Because you know the reasons why they do it is to stay relevant, right? They only do this for attention. They are literal attention-seeking whores. They will say some downright unconscionable, ridiculous mental gymnastic level shit just for attention and to stay relevant. Journalists, especially games journalists, premier examples of this. A+ examples of how they consistently fumble and fuck the bag to such a significant level of degree that it becomes its own advertisement. And they don't even do it because they actually believe it. They do it because they know it's going to get them the clicks, okay? We have to treat these people like we treat games journalists, right? Let them fade into obscurity, stop paying attention to them, their opinions have no value.
Let's watch some of these TikToks, let's listen to them, listen to their points. We're not going to be mean, we're not going to own the libs, okay? We are going to hear them out.
You guys are complaining about that Sydney Sweeney jeans ad, so I went and saw it.
I've seen this one outside of this video.
Nazi propaganda.
Holy 2014 Tumblr. What the f***? Out here looking like she walked straight out of a Stone Toss comic. Looking like you're going on the thumbnail of this video.
It's always tattoos and butterflies with these people. It's always tattoos and butterflies. I'm sorry, let me be specific. Butterfly glasses, right? Like, when I see red designer butterfly-shaped glasses, you know that you're dealing with the absolute worst that society has to offer. I'm just saying. Some women make the tattoos look great, but that's only because it comes with a rough exterior. If it doesn't come with a somewhat feminine, rough and tumble type of exterior, it is not attractive. I'm just saying, right? Like, the only way you can make tattoos look attractive as a woman is if you're a biker chick. And unless you're a biker chick, anything else is highly questionable, right? You cannot pull off tattoos as a woman anymore because every other woman who has had a tattoo has utterly fucked it. And so has women with these red designer butterfly glasses and just butterfly glasses in general. It just needs to stop. It needs to stop, alright? You people who look the same, for whatever reason, you're gonna make the people who are actually sane and aren't dipshits look like fucking crazy people. Stop it. Stop it. Get some help. Knock it the fuck off. Please. I look at it the same way with candy-colored hair, right? You know, if I see too much color in your hair, it's similar process, right? Women have utterly ruined blue hair for me, and the only woman who's bringing it back, in my mind, is Leaflet, but that's because she's an anime woman on the internet, but that's neither here or there. The point is that we are losing... They are, well, not we, but they are losing the cultural battle hard, and they don't even know it, because they're so fucking delusional. That's how delusional these people are. They're so delusional, they don't even realize they're losing the plot. And it makes me question, it begs to question, truly, just how bad does things need to get before you start having a change of mind? Before you start smelling the roses, right? Before you start smelling those ever so smelly roses. It really does make you think. But, yeah. Let's just move on.
Oh, listen, if your bangs end in the middle of your forehead,
I'm gonna stop
you don't have to
pausing
tell
for
me
a
your
bit.
political opinions.
I paused way too
I
much.
can tell. Okay, sorry.
It's not even 2 minutes into the video, I'm sure.
Let's continue.
Okay, maybe it is.
I will be the friend that's too woke, because those Sydney Sweeney American Eagle ads are weird. Like, fascist weird. Like, Nazi propaganda weird.
So this commercial was apparently a reference to an old Brooke Shields commercial from the 80s.
The secret of life lies hidden in a genetic code. Genes are fundamental in determining the characteristics of an individual and passing on these characteristics to succeeding generations. This may result in the origin of an entirely new species. Which brings us to Calvin's and the survival of the fittest.
Calvin Klein jeans.
Oh my god, she turns into a swastika. She was like 14 in that ad, by the way. Really creepy. So at least Sydney Sweeney is of legal age. 14 is actually pretty old for Brooke Shields if you know her history and her lore. If anything, that is the most f***ed up thing about this Sydney Sweeney ad, referencing an old ad of a child star who was abused by Hollywood. But yeah, it was a
I mean, if you think that's bad, it's not that surprising. I mean, just look at Marilyn Monroe. It was like the greatest Hollywood sex symbol for like a good long while. Probably the first one of her kind, and then, well, I don't think it needs explaining just how well that turned out in the long run, but, you know, yeah. These places and industries are typically fucked up, you know. It's, yeah.
Back
I said I wouldn't
to
pause.
an old commercial. And Sydney Sweeney is the current day hot celebrity, so they chose to do it with her. They unfortunately failed to consider the fact that in current year, white people are not allowed to say that they have good genes, because that is Nazi propaganda.
A blonde-haired, blue-eyed white woman is talking about her good genes. Like, that is Nazi propaganda.
You don't get to drop lines about inherited traits, blue eyes, and great genes while zooming in on somebody that could have walked straight off of a Nazi propaganda poster.
A white, blonde, blue-eyed, Hitler's wet dream talking about how much she loves her genetics.
It's not just giving eugenics, it's giving male fantasy.
I like how
You know, I agree with these women. I agree with them full-heartedly. In fact, I agree with them so much, we should send them to Africa. We should send them to Africa and never let them come back. Let's see how long they survive in Africa, where everyone is apparently being targeted by these African communities. Anyone who's at least Caucasian in descent and owns any property. Let's just see how long they last. And if you think that's bad, if you want to talk about, like, the literal sort of, like, are certain genes good genes, we can also look at the Africans for the same question and realize that they treat albinos even fucking worse than they do actual white people. Think about that for a second. Again, we're not ready to have this discussion.
Eugenics and being attractive to men are like equally terrible things to these people.
Sydney Sweeney's jeans ad is giving ethnic state propaganda. It is giving dystopian. It is giving 1940s Germany.
Why do they all speak the same? Why do they all do the same shit? They all say the same shit.
Because they're mentally deficient and just socially retarded. I don't know how best to tell you this, Shu, but the verdict has come in. The doctor has given us the exam, and they have determined to us that these people are mentally deranged, and they don't actually have a personality outside of what their in-group tells them. Like, they need somebody else to tell them how to think in order to think. because they're just that soulless. They're just that personalityless. They're just that what's the word now I'm looking for now? They're just shit, what is the word I'm looking for here? What is the word? Okay, I tried looking up a definition, and I couldn't find the word that I was specifically looking for, but I feel like these other definitions fit the bill just as much. We got bland, dull, lifeless, characterless, insipid, uninteresting, my favorite word, monotonous. They're bland, monotonous people who don't have a brain of their own, and they require other people to validate their existences. It's crazy.
Giving. It's giving.
Put a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, fair-skinned woman in an ad and say she has good genes. I don't know if I can say this, but it's literally giving Nazi propaganda.
It's giving. Also, the flesh-colored microphone? Why? It's giving okay? It's giving It's giving cock.
She probably has an OF account. We don't know. I wouldn't put it past her. I wouldn't put it past most women today. They probably all have OF accounts, and we just don't know. We will never know.
I actually have to explain this, but there is a reason that they picked a girl named Sydney Sweeney for this ad, and it's not just her blonde hair and her blue eyes. Sydney Sweeney is laying with her German Shepherd dog in this shoe. Her name is Sydney Sweeney, so her initials are SS. They intentionally included her German Shepherd dog in the photo shoot.
Oh my god. Take your meds. Meds, 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 meds. Her name is Sydney Sweeney. Her initials are SS, like the Nazis. The dog is a German Shepherd. German, like the Nazis. Are they putting crack in birth control nowadays? What is going on? She is a hot woman. She is a hot woman because of the way she looks. She looks the way she looks because of genetics. She has great genes.
You know, I never realized until, like, what was it? Like, until I was, like, well within my early 20s. I think it was like 23 or 24 when I realized that birth control was actually terrible on the body. And so I got to a point where I was just like, yeah, you know, like if it ever came down to it, right, I would just wear a condom. I would just wear a condom. I wouldn't ask for that type of thing. I would not want them to ingest birth control or use birth control in any fashion or whatever facet it comes in. I'm sure there are other options for it, and it does so much weird shit to the female body, just chemically speaking, that I would not willingly want to ask someone to take that unless they themselves are just like they want to take it, and even then I would deter them. I would actively ask them not to do that. Like, I don't need to do this if the result of us doing this thing is you basically having to ingest harmful chemicals into your system that's gonna fuck up your emotional frame of mind and among other things, your entire well-being, so to speak. It has such an interesting effect on the female form, birth control, right? That they use a form of birth control to treat endometriosis. What is that? What is that thing? Hang on, let me look it up. Yes, there it is. Endometriosis, a disease in which tissue similar to the lining of the uterus grows outside of the uterus. It's basically like, you know how like what's a simple way to describe this? You know how biomass tends to grow in dead space when what was it, the megamycete? I don't even remember now. No, that's something else. That's from Resident Evil. You know how in the marker causes the necromorphs to essentially congeal a bunch of biomass to a point to where it starts affecting the environment around the area that it's infecting, right? Where these necromorphs tend to congregate. That's kind of the same thing. It's kind of a similar idea. but it's kind of like a cancer, right? It's kind of like a growing cyst or cancer. It's what it does is that, and why it's so bad is that it not only congeals around the actual organ itself, it congeals onto other organs, and it creates so many problems, so many issues. And one of the means that they use to apparently and reportedly, right, treat this is by having women take birth control pills or some type of birth control, which is kind of crazy to think about. Like, that's how effective birth control is that it could be used as a treatment for certain bodily functions, especially ones this abhorrently awful as shit like this. It's, yeah. Anyways, sorry. That's your little life lesson, your little lesson for today. Your little medical lesson for today.
That is how a normal person sees it. She's blonde and has blue eyes and her initials are SS and she has a German Shepherd. Is how a schizophrenic, politically brain-rotted person sees it.
Hi, thanks for calling American Eagle. This is Jess. How can I help today?
Hi, I am a marketing student and was wondering if I could speak to someone who could maybe give me some insight as to what estimated return on investment there has to be willing to use white supremacy and eugenics as your marketing campaign.
On a marketing campaign?
Harassing some poor worker.
She's not even from this country either. I mean, like, most of these customer service call-outs are usually they're usually, what's the word now again? Crap. They're usually, words are hard. Why are they so hard today? They've been hard for a while, man. But yeah, it's this is something that has been relegated to other countries, other cultures, other groups of people to essentially do this. It's kind of annoying in a lot of ways, but in this particular instance, why would you call a company simply? Why would you call a customer service hotline just to simply ask the most ridiculous question, especially to a person who doesn't likely have any sort of answer as to what the hell you're even talking about? They're probably wondering what the hell she's even asking about. They're probably not even sure what she's referring to. She's probably just on that line, just like, did we do something that involves eugenics? Did we do something that involves white supremacy or white propaganda? Like, what is she talking about?
Doesn't even fucking speak English. Has all to do with the commercial. These people are sick.
Yes, I recently saw American Eagle's eugenics marketing campaign where they used that white blonde girl and talked about how good her genes were in a time where racism is rampant in the U.S.
I see. Thank you for taking time to share your feedback.
Why are you bothering this random-ass Filipino woman with your West Wing-ass TED Talk? Nobody gives a
Okay, so there's no way to, as a student, I can't learn about when eugenics makes sense in marketing? No one on the marketing team can talk to me about that?
I miss like 50 years ago when these people would just be serial killers instead of doing whatever the this is.
I miss a time when the only problem that Karens were just soccer moms or just overly concerned parents. I miss those days. I miss the days when the only problem that they were just helicopter parents. I'm so fucking annoyed with the way society has turned into and how it's progressed. I'm genuinely annoyed. And it's mortifying to consider the future. It's painstakingly awful to think about the future.
He's even got other celebrities seething.
Genes are passed down from parents to offspring, often determining traits like hair color, personality, and even eye color. My genes are blue.
Oh, that's just funny.
Haha, she did a dumb redneck voice. Get it? Because all white people are dumb inbred hicks. Good one, Doja. Hey, by the way, why are you pandering to the same exact people who got your ass canceled for wearing a Sam Hyde shirt once? They all think you're racist too, girl, but Nice try. Hope they see this.
Doja Cat is making fun of Sydney Sweeney's ad only because she realized after all those years of her kissing up to white supremacists, they're never going to accept her because she's a half-black woman. Wearing the Sam Hyde shirt, you dating all these white supremacists. So make fun of the ad all you want, but we'll never forget you rolling around in those chat rooms showing white supremacists your feet so they can make fun of your black ass.
Oh.
I don't know if there's an easier way to say this. If you're attractive, you could get away with a lot, right? And especially if you're an African American with a nice bod, you will find that there are so many guys who will look at you like a mythical unicorn, right? Because they're so used to seeing the absolute worst. There is no easy way to say this. They're so used to seeing the absolute state, we'll say, of what those communities tend to support, what they tend to turn women into, and what these women tend to gravitate towards, that in terms of beauty and cosmetics, that when there's an actually attractive African American woman, or a woman of African descent even, it's, well, I mean, suddenly all of the attention is going to be on her. All of the attention is going to be in her direction. And that's not even a question, it's just a fact. I mean, like, you go to some of your favorite hub websites, you'll notice that too. The African women of wherever they come from, like they're celebrated both in looks and even in personality sometimes, as well as just in intellect. It depends on the situation, it depends on the scenario, it depends on the circumstances, it also depends on attractiveness of the person in question. I don't get the point of what she's making here. It's the only thing let me put it like this. The only thing oppressing the African American community are African Americans. And that's just societally speaking, that's culturally speaking, right? The only people who are negatively affecting your way of life are politicians. And just because they happen to be Caucasian, that doesn't take away from the fact that they're literally just a bunch of old fogies who literally don't know what the fuck they're doing half the time. They probably don't even remember what they ate just, like, literally 5 minutes ago. Yeah. Let's blame the actual problems and not the associations to the problems.
They did see it, and they still hate you.
Weird adverts aside about how the best genes are characterized in a conventionally attractive white, blonde, blue-eyed woman. Not true, I mean, look at me. Within 5 years, or as soon as she shows any sign of aging, that's it. The moment she becomes visibly over 25.
Enjoy the ride now, babe, before you get too old and ugly and hit the wall.
I mean, he's technically not wrong. I mean, like, the moment your looks start to fade and the moment you start looking a little too old is the moment that a lot of these marketing places, and including the funny hub industry, decides it wants to drop your ass as well. It's just the way it is, all right? It's literally an industry built up on looks and appearances. Like, you can't be a successful model if you don't have the look to pull it off, right? It's just the way it is.
But wokely. This is just something I've noticed in the decade of criticizing feminism on the internet. Male feminists are the most misogynistic, sexist freaks ever when they finally have an acceptable, approved target to go after. God forbid you are a woman with the incorrect opinion, because hell hath no fury like a male feminist replying to you.
The internalized misogyny of other women is a statement that only makes sense in the mind of certain retarded human beings, including male feminists. I've seen this before. I've seen people. I've actually had a friend who literally got called, who literally had that line uttered to them, and I'm just like, I don't know how recognizing an actual fact of reality is internalized misogyny, but we'll go with that. We'll just go with that. In fact, at this point, you should just wear that shit like it's a badge of honor, because it means that you're actually talking sense, because that's the only time the term ever actually applicably applies, right? Is when you're saying something that makes sense, and they're saying something that they can reasonably say factually makes sense, and so they call you a internalized misogynist, someone who has internalized misogyny, and they just call it a day. And it's kind of scary and weird how that's actually a thing. This is why terms no longer are used and no longer mean the same things that they used to. It's like the word Nazi.
Strawberry blonde, blue-eyed woman, marketing having great genes. This is just a whole eugenics campaign, and I, for one, would like to throw myself off a balcony.
Do it. Do a backflip. Live stream it. Also, these people just straight up don't know what the eugenics movement is. Talking about genetics is not
You know, no, I don't know. Should I say it? No. No, I shouldn't say it. Though I would certainly love to say it. I'm not going to say it. I mean, there's certainly no better way to effectively weed somebody out of the gene pool to make sure stupidity doesn't get passed down quite like the self-culling of certain individuals. It's that's all I'm gonna say on that.
Eugenics. Sydney Sweeney did not say she had the best genes or superior genes or that other people had bad, inferior genes. Someone even made it like a fake ad, like, Beyonce has better genes, and it's like, why'd you pick the picture where she has like a blonde wig on?
This campaign is poking at women's greatest and most tender insecurity under the patriarchy, which is desirability and the beauty standard. It affects not only non-white women, even though this is clearly white supremacist, Aryan race propaganda, but it also adversely affects the majority of white women who do not naturally have blonde hair and blue eyes. Because yes, even the women who can achieve this look have to do it through artificial means in one way or another. The vast majority of white women are not naturally blonde. And of course, lots of white women are also insecure about having brown eyes. So that's a whole generation of young white women who are being further propagandized to purchase blonde hair dye and contacts for the rest of all time.
Okay.
Far be it from me to criticize a black woman when she's speaking, right? But, what are you even saying? What are you even talking about? How does this at all involve or affect you in any capacity? Alright? Stay in your own lane, missy. Okay? You know, I listen to you, and now that I've listened to you, I need to let you know. I just need to tell you, right, that if it's true that we can't at all criticize or somehow disrespect the certain cultural things that women that African women tend to congregate towards and do, among other things, right? If we can't criticize these things, right, then we have to also consider, right, you can't really criticize other people for abusing the same things that even your own communities abuse. Alright, you want to talk about the absurd beauty standards? But let's talk about the amount of weaves that get put in the hairs of so many of these other women. Let's talk about, like, their weird sort of coveting of, like, the most bizarre beauty standards, whether it's putting weaves in their hair, whether it's, like, which is just a wig, really, and the fact that they choose to dye their hairs in weird, bizarre colors, and it's not just blonde sometimes, why they choose to get buzz cuts over any other thing. Like, this is clearly someone who does not have this problem, because they're conventionally attractive, right? They clearly have a conventional standard of attractiveness, and she's probably one of the few women that I've seen with straight hair, and a lot of women of, a lot of African American women try severely hard to get long, straight hair, but some, if not most of them, just cannot achieve that because of the way that their hair is different from most people's. So it's like, I don't want to speak too much about the details and the nitty-gritties of the specifics, right? Because I'm not too versed on the beauty standards of women and their need to constantly one up themselves in some capacity, right? I'm not too familiar with how especially with African American communities and their idea of beauty standards, but what I will say is that nothing that they're doing is at all attractive. And yet they do it anyways. I don't know why they do it, but they do it. And it really makes me wonder why that they do it, right? She is literally the exception talking about... you know what? I'm just gonna stop.
Okay, what? Are attractive women just not allowed to model anymore because, like, God forbid it makes some other women insecure? And as someone with brown eyes...
Hey, I'm not gonna make the pot calling the kettle black joke.
I've never once felt insecure about having brown eyes. Like, yeah, I'm not gonna get into Hyperborea, but I've seen myself photoshopped with blue eyes.
And also
Horrifying.
a blueberry.
So we've
I remember
gone
that
from
too.
Nazi propaganda to genocide to racism to now poor little girls are gonna feel insecure because they don't have blue eyes like Sydney Sweeney.
Another thing about the Sydney Sweeney beauty standard that is very important to note is that big boobs are a hallmark of what conservative men are attracted to. At the end of the early 2000s and through the 2010s, we were becoming a more progressive society, and so we also naturally progressed to be a more ass-centric society.
In the 2000s, we were...
Yeah. For a long while, there was a lot of African men who were coveting the attraction and the interest of a lot of thick-ass white women. That was a thing for a good long while. Everybody remember that? Remember that stereotype? That was... God, those were funny times, man. I miss high school. High school was so much simpler. Life was so much simpler back then. God, life was so much simpler back then. Why can't everything just go back to normal?
We were becoming more progressive, so we started objectifying women's butts. What? The communist utopia will be ass-centric, apparently. I didn't know the ass versus tit thing was political. How does she know conservatives are all boob men? Conservatives in the audience, are you a boobs or butt guy?
I mean, I guess I would technically, by these people's definitions, be a conservative, so if I had to put myself into this question, yes, I am very much a boob guy. I am very much a boob guy over an ass guy. It's not because I apparently have conservative values. It's just because I just like boobs. I mean, most men like boobs, even when they say that they don't particularly find them that interesting to look at outside of some other things that they could look at, right? We're just naturally hardwired to find boobs of any kind attractive as a quality on a female form. It is not this hard to think about. It's just the way it is. All right? It's the same thing with the... You know what? I'm not even going to go into that discussion, because then it's just going to get pedantic.
Political affiliation of the feet men, libertarians. Listen, they can try to disguise it.
I mean, as a registered libertarian myself, I'm not particular to feet. I don't care for feet. But I guess you can say that it's pretty libertarian to want something that isn't the status quo, I guess. I don't know. I've seen some particular libertarians online talk about certain things, and it's like, I mean, yeah. I'm just gonna leave it there. I don't like the opinions of some libertarians. Like, some libertarians have very weird ideas. Like, some either go full anarchy, like full anarchist levels of like independence of like, oh, I just want to be my own man. I want to exist and live by my own means to the point to where the government doesn't at all guide my decisions or force me to capitulate on anything, Or they're the weird type of libertarian where it's just like they subscribe so hard into the idea of, what is it? They subscribe so hard onto the idea of like the rule of law in such a weird, bizarre way that it becomes almost hypocritical. Like, I don't know how else to say it. Like, I don't talk to very many libertarians, but the few that I have seen online, and the handful that I might have spoken to, were just they had some very weird opinions, and they did not at all sometimes make sense, or they bordered too hard into the extreme that it makes me question these people, which is why it feels weird to be associated with them. It's also one of the reasons why libertarians hate other libertarians. It's because it's such a vague and nebulous thing. But the one thing we all agree on is that we like our autonomy, we like our independence from everybody else and every other thing. Sort of, kind of. Some people like more restrictions on certain things, and some people do not. It's weird.
With their little intersectionality buzzwords, all they want, but at the end of the day, women just want a socially acceptable reason to hate other women. That's it.
Good genes passed on to offspring? That American Eagle ad with Sydney Sweeney is literally overt eugenics. I know you don't want to hear this, but if you want to talk about how that ad is promoting eugenics, which it absolutely is, we also have to talk about how choosing not to wear a mask when you can during an ongoing pandemic, because you're okay with a certain subset of people, primarily disabled people of color, dying for your own comfort, is also eugenics.
So, choosing not to wear a mask is a choice during the pandemic. If you got sick, though, at the very least you could do, right? If you go out not wearing a mask, that's your choice. I'm not going to knock someone for that. But if you go outside knowing full well that you're affected with the sickness, you're affected with the COVID, if you go outside knowing this and are willingly going to be put in public scenarios where you might be in the position to pass on this sickness to other people, that's a fuck you. That's a massive fuck you moment. And if you have to do this because you have no other means to acquire the necessities you need in order to live your life, that's valid. But the very least you could do is at least wear a mask, right? Just wear a mask. Make it impossible for you to spread your contagion to other people. Alright? It's not the biggest ask. I'm not asking that you wear a mask even when you're well. I'm just saying if you're sick, make it to where it's not very likely for you to pass on the sickness, okay? It passes on, the COVID is passed on for multiple ways, but most of it was airborne, right? Just breathing the same air as an infected person was enough to get you infected with the sickness, right? So just do your due diligence, just be respectful, right? Go outside, and if you're sick, wear a fucking mask. And if you're not going to wear a fucking mask, then don't go outside. I feel like that's a very simple thing you could do. I feel like it's a very simple thing you could do. I feel like people had it backwards during the whole pandemic, when it was like, oh yeah, everybody should wear a mask. That way everybody will be guaranteed to be well. And it's just like, no, we don't need everyone to wear a mask. We could just have people who are sick wear a mask, because it at least stifles their breath in a way to where, like, it doesn't just immediately spread out and just goes and affects other people. At least the way these fucking masks tend to suffocate you, it gives me the feeling, in the sense, right, that your exhalation is not going to travel that very far. Anyways, I'm getting pedantic, but it's just whatever.
1 second.
I have paused so many times to nitpick, it is unreal.
We are talking about wearing masks for COVID in 2025.
Yeah.
I like how she's woke scolding the other woke scolds for not woke scolding about her particular pet issue. COVID broke the brains of so many of these people, man. It's because it's when the world was just a giant, safe HR longhouse where it was socially acceptable for them to be moral busybodies and never leave their home. It was like the closest to their lib shit utopia that we have ever gotten, and
then they try to make it even harder into the lib shit utopia by basically fear-mongering people into capitulating to their standards. And it's it was such an interesting mask-off moment that it's one of the reasons why I don't trust the government, and when it's one of the reasons why I don't trust anybody who supports these people in government. It's like, I don't care for these people, why do you? And if you think they care about you, you're fucking stupid. You're a goddamn idiot. You probably don't deserve to make your own decisions by that point.
Miss it.
I remember growing up in a predominantly white community, wishing myself out of this body, out of this culture. Take my name if it meant that I could wake up blonde-haired and blue-eyed, never having to explain who I am or worry about being accepted. That is why this American Eagle ad with Sydney Sweeney is especially off-putting.
Listen, I'm sorry that happened to you, but we live in a predominantly white country. If you go to another country, there will be a different beauty standard. If you go to the country of your ancestors, there will be a different beauty standard, and maybe it will look more like you. But again, she didn't say her genes were better or the best, and it's not like all the hot popular celebrities look like Sydney Sweeney. Look at Ana de Armas, look at Zendaya. They don't look anything like Sydney Sweeney, and they are known as very beautiful around Hollywood. This is why corporations and the media think in order to pander to the female gaze, everything has to be like average and frumpy and ugly, because women can't stop fucking projecting their insecurities. Not every character in a movie or a video game has to look like you. Not everyone in an ad has to look like you. Hell, the only time I see people who look like me is when I turn on the live-action Grinch movie. You notice men never say this shit, by the way? They usually go like, wow, that man is strong. I don't look like that. I'm gonna go to the gym. And women are like, wow, that woman is thin. I don't look like that. I'm gonna go complain.
What makes
She's spitting facts. She's spitting hard facts because it's true. You know, like, I've only ever seen beauty standard complaining by women. I've never seen men bitch and moan about the standards of and lifestyles of other men until it was starting to become a problem, right? The thing that I mentioned earlier in the video about the steroid abuse and among other things, that shit is recent. That shit is a recent issue that I didn't even realize was a thing until people started talking about it. And what's even crazier, right, is that not only do we not complain about this shit, we actively wonder and question why other people do this. Because it makes sense, right? It's like, oh yeah, attractive people are attractive. Cool. Nice. Good day. And then we have people who are like, wait, hold up a minute. But why, though? What do you mean, why? Well, if attractive, why? It's like, what do you mean, why? It's just like, what do you mean, why attractive? It's just like, no. You're not understanding. It makes me feel uncomfortable to see attractive people. And it's like, I'm sorry to fucking hear that. Sorry. Good for you? Not good for you? What do you want me to say? And what's even crazier, right, is that women are the biggest proponent of this issue. And what's even crazier, right, is that they will more than readily, completely, just without even any sort of rhyme or reason, without even any sort of nagging on the men's part, right? They will just outright bash female characters in media that are clearly designed and are clearly, like, you know, made specifically towards a male demographic and to serve about the same purpose as you might expect for obvious reasons that are obvious, right? Like, saving the princess from the castle that's being guarded by a dragon is a trope that only makes sense because it's the male masculine power fantasy in its premier form, right? It is the quote unquote standard male power fantasy to save the beautiful princess locked in at the top of a gilded tower, right? It is the premier fantasy for a reason. And they hate that so fucking much because they don't understand. It's because they can't understand, right, that there are different levels of attractiveness. And they seem to have this idea, right, that there is a specific line of attractiveness that needs to be met in order to be considered attractive. It's like, no. Women come in all shapes and sizes. Guys are not necessarily this picky. And the only time they are picky about physical appearances is when you're a 300-pound beached fucking whale, or you're a scrawny as fucking drug addict who has nothing better to do with their time, right? That's the only time they get concerned about this shit. Only time. When you are a somewhat disheveled-looking human being that has varying levels of attractiveness, that's a little confusing, but there are aspects that could be enjoyed, right? But if you're just, like if you're a petite, not necessarily frumpy, but sort of just kind of like you're small in certain places, but you're big in the other places, it's like, there are some contrasting issues that kind of meld together, right? Like, a guy can appreciate a woman with a fat ass and small tits, right? But the other way around is just kind of weird, right? It just looks a little bizarre. And it's only bizarre because the fat usually congregates in the areas where there is... I'm not gonna get into the genetic side. I'm not gonna get into the sort of anatomy, sort of genetic level discussion around this. The point being, right, is that they will rightly criticize the, like, men's hobbies, men's entertainment, and men's enjoyment of certain things because it has attractive women in it, to the point to where, like, it's basically treats them like objects, right? It's like, okay, understandable, right? You probably don't like to be viewed as an ogled object on a piece of media, right? You probably don't want to be the representative of eye candy. I can see that. I can understand this to a degree, right? Because that's not what you want in a relationship. You don't want to be a trophy wife. I get that idea. I get that sense. I understand it. But this isn't the place or the time to be arguing this. And that's not even with the purpose of what this is supposed to serve. This is just pure, unapologetic entertainment. This is just entertainment for the sake of entertainment. You don't have to inject that level of reality into it unless you're trying to actually unless you're telling an actual, like, full-on romance, and in which case, yeah, it takes two to tango. But that's not the story that's usually being told. The story that's usually being told is that you have the knight errant who is here to save the whimsical princess from being locked away in this really disgustingly decrepit castle, or just guarded by a dragon, whatever the fuck, right? Just some dilapidated ruin or some shit. And you're here primarily to save her and to rescue her and potentially earn her hand in marriage. Who fucking knows? That's not the point of the story. Or, like, it could just be like you are working with, like, it's an action movie that basically has little to no story, or it's an action game that has little to no story, right? And so you have characters who, because they're only going to have a so-so amount of dialogue, you need to kind of showcase what they're about without actually telling the audience, right? And that's good, that's even true in works where there is a lot of dialogue, right? It's about atmosphere. And if your character is a femme fatale, guess what? You're going to portray her like like she leans more in a sexual promiscuity sort of way than she is going to be anything else. That can still be perceived as being particularly eye-catching or eye-candy, right? But you won't care about that. You won't care if it's used in a way that actually makes sense. Because, again, it makes you feel weird. It makes you feel bad. Look, I'm going to harp on this all day, but all I'm saying is that we have a bunch of women out here who are basically complaining about anything and everything under the sun when it comes to the male gaze or the male attraction, when we could easily do the same shit about some of the shit you people are into. Again, fucking Love and Deep Space, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, in that direction. But we don't do it. We don't do it predominantly, and we don't do it with a loud, booming sort of outcry of us just telling you to go fuck yourselves because how dare you ogle us with your woman gaze. We don't pull that same shit. We don't fucking care. But you know what we do care about? We care about the fact that everything is done fairly, right? We care about fairness. We care about the fairness of the issue. And that's where we tend to lose in this discussion, is that you care more about the fact that something makes you feel bad, you develop an insecurity in any fashion, and you go and bitch about it, we're going to have a problem with that. Why? Because we could easily point to another work of entertainment where you probably have done the same shit to guys, and we're going to take you to task for it, okay? This should not be this complicated, and yet it is. I've had almost a similar argument with a friend of mine, just like, she plays a game, And she enjoys it because of the men that are in there. They are cartoonishly falling all over themselves to be with this heroine who is just not even overly attractive, just conventionally attractive among other things, right? You know, she is a literal audience surrogate character, and you could not care at all that this is a thing if you're a guy, but you will start to question these people when they start doing the same shit that they usually do, which is just like, I don't like the way that they treat women in other forms of media. It's just like, I don't care about the way that your games treat men in your form of entertainment, alright, bitch? Stay in your own fucking lane.
Sweeney's jeans.
I'm done.
Like, why did you get that joke? All us woke people are saying is that it's just a little bit weird to directly reference European jeans as better.
Again, she never said that her jeans were better. You are making shit up.
Now, when you think of the all-American girl, like, the standard of, like, American beauty, you probably think blonde hair, blue eyes, white girl, right? You're not supposed to think that way.
You're not supposed to think that way, guys. That's double plus ungood.
That's ingrained in you because of.
I'm gonna try not to pause. I really will. I'm gonna try not to pause.
When you think about the all-American woman, you should be thinking about an obese, transgender, disabled woman or something. What would be an acceptable vision of the American woman for this person? It's insane she's saying that we think Sydney Sweeney is hot because of negative things that have been pushed on us by society. No, we have eyes. And just because she is attractive does not mean you are also not attractive. Look at your full lips. That is a standard of beauty I'll never live up to, but that's okay, because I have other things that are beautiful and unique about me, just like you have other things that are beautiful and unique about you.
I'm pretty sure a lot of women will lose interest in wanting to have fuller lips if we just started calling them dick-sucking lips like some people tend to call them, for reasons that are obvious. It'll lose fad real quick if everyone just on command when they see women with full lips are just like, oh my god, look at those D-sucking lips, man. Totally attractive. Would absolutely hit 100%. Would do again. They would change tune so fucking quick. It is unreal.
Regardless if Sydney Sweeney is held up as the American beauty standard, these are lessons your mother should have taught you, not a YouTuber. Sydney Sweeney's ad shows a cultural shift towards whiteness. Advertisements are always mirrors of society, and sometimes what they reflect is ugly and startling. Boo! A white woman. Oh, the fucking author is white. I hate these people, man. Shut up. Shut up.
Yeah,
it's one thing
please.
when it's like a non-white person talking about how white people suck. It's like, okay, you're just racist. But when it's a white person talking about white people suck, you need to be ground up into a pulp and fed to livestock. You would honestly be more useful that way. Ads are always mirrors of society, and sometimes what they reflect is ugly and startling. Popular American culture is, indisputably, becoming more puritanical and more conservative. Puritanical? The focus of the ad was her tits and ass! This is not at all a conservative, puritanical ad. Have you seen what the puritanical right thinks of Sydney Sweeney? They think she's a whore, okay? They think she's a whore.
Yeah, because it's promoting Christian values. Like, when you look at the ad, the takeaway from it from the left side is that, oh, this is sexual objectification. When you look at the right conservative side of things that probably are also entrenched in Christianity in a decent sense of moral values because that are built and propagated by those puritanical beliefs, they're like, this is a whore. This is a woman who clearly does not care about herself. The contrast is so wild.
Backlash has been swift and fierce, and some of it, at least if you ask me, is fair. The internet has been quick to condemn the advertisement as non-inclusive at best. Non-inclusive? Why the f*** does everything have to be inclusive? It's a commercial with one f***ing person in it.
Yeah.
Sweeney exudes a source of vintage sexiness that caters to the male gaze. She embodies the near mythological girl next door beautiful but low maintenance sexy femininity that dominated the media in the 1990s and early 2000s. Oh wow, that sounds great. You're telling me that's fascism? Waiter, more fascism please. What the f***? It's just so funny, like, the left is currently losing their mind about how, like, they need to get young men to vote for Democrats again, and here they are, like, blondes with big are fascism. Listen, the alt-right pipeline does not start with the American Eagle ad. It starts with you. What are you doing? This is not at all a conservative far-right ad. It's just a normal ad that would have ran like 15 years ago. But I guess that's what being far-right is nowadays.
They forgot
being
that Arby's
normal
commercials
from 15
exist.
years ago. I love this random part of the article though. Young women are being radicalized through so-called clean skincare and healthy eating. So fascism is hot people eating healthy and having clean skin. Goebbels himself could not make better propaganda. Literally, as I am editing this video, the New York Times comes out with his opinion piece, Why the Right is Obsessed with Thinness. I would really, really appreciate if people stopped equating health and beauty to fascism, because if health and beauty are fascism, what is unhealthiness and ugliness? Unfortunately, a big part of socially progressive ideology is dismantling hierarchies and norms, and challenging what society sees as conventional, traditional, and beautiful. A really good example of this was those statues that were put up like all over different cities of like a frumpy woman in leggings. And the artist says like the purpose of these was to like challenge conventional beauty standards, and it's like, imagine looking like one of these women and then hearing like, oh yeah, this was put up to challenge beauty. Like, what do you mean by that?
It's not even really challenging as it is just accepted, right? I already told you my thoughts and opinions about certain communities. I don't need to talk about why this isn't really challenging as it is just promoting the status quo, right? What is challenging about the statue we just saw, other than the fact that it is just unapologetically modern? It is just normal. This is the average now. What are you trying to say with this? It'd be one thing if this is like literally like a 500-pound woman that needs a crane to essentially move her ass around to different places and whatever. That is not what we saw. This is just a typical woman you can find walking around in most democratic cities. In most liberal cities. I don't know what else to say about that other than the fact that if you think this is somehow challenging beauty standards, you're fucking retarded.
Remember the whole body positivity movement like 10 years ago? Remember like all the fat influencers? Remember when every single ad was like this ad, for example? Calvin Klein's latest underwear campaign is breaking big boundaries. Big boundaries!
You want to know what I think is also challenging of, like, the idea of challenging beauty standards, quote-unquote, to me, would be like, if you were to have people wear garments that is still casual, still easily modern, but is extravagant in so many other different ways that it commands your attention, right? Like the Hitman mission, when you infiltrate, like the new Hitman game by IO, where you play, like 47 going into like a beauty pageant, that's, like, you remember, right? It's like it had the whole stage walk and everything. A lot of people were there to kind of like see the new fashion that was being promoted by these fashionistas and these fashion models. Like, that mission accentuates the entirety of the point, right? It's to make things that look simple look new in different ways, right? That's basically what the mission emphasized, and that's basically what would be pushing the boundaries, in my mind, right, of what is considered the quote-unquote standard, or challenging our norms when it comes to beauty, right? That's what I would think, right? Right? Am I the only one? I don't know.
Whoa. What do you mean by that? While fashion is starting to seriously consider creating more inclusive environment for consumers, there is still a huge mountain to climb before it is truly considered diverse. Huge mountain? No, that's just me. And that's why Calvin Klein, probably the most famous name associated with underwear, just launched a groundbreaking campaign. Groundbreaking? Oh! Come on now. The campaign is all about feeling free to express yourself, being uninhibited, and being provocative by challenging the norms we see on a regular basis. See? Challenging norms. It's all about challenging norms. This reminds me of that Protein World controversy from 2015. Old heads will remember. I wrote an article about it for the Libertarian Republic. Wow, that was a long time ago. But anyway, a billboard with this ad for a protein powder supplement was put up and people lost their fucking minds. They vandalized it, they threatened to get a bunch of the employees fired, they threatened to go where the company was located with hammers, all because they committed the great crime of body shaming by daring to have a thin, attractive woman on their ad. This ad made other companies come out with their own like little virtue signaling things, like passive aggressive, like everybody is ready. Like every fashion magazine, every beauty magazine was pumping this out at the time, just fat, 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 fat. The rise of like Tess Holiday and the hashtag F your beauty standards. Oh my god. You could not escape this. Also, suspiciously, body positivity only seemed to mean obese women. But yes, everywhere you looked, it was like fat, 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 and everyone was like, yes, queen! Well, now we live in Ozempic world, and the fat acceptance movement seems to have died. Like many of the fat influencers, unfortunately. And these same types of people are like crashing out about the Sydney Sweeney ad because they really do feel like all the work they have done to like socially engineer people's behavior and preferences has been just like destroyed overnight. Who would win? Decades of propaganda? One big booby girl. I wrote in the old article, I can't say I'm too surprised at the backlash towards this model's body. We are living in a world where instead of striving to better ourselves and live a healthy lifestyle, praising obesity and unattractiveness is becoming the norm. Well, shoe on head from 10 years ago, you will be happy to hear that it seems like it's no longer the norm. Because apparently not just American Eagle, but like Dunkin' Donuts and Arby's are using hot people in their ads again.
Arby's brought it back. That's right. I forgot they did that. That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm glad we're bringing it back. I'm glad we're bringing back hot women and hot dudes. Even though they probably... to be fair, I don't think hot dudes ever really went away. They were just there. Nobody cared. But I'm glad that we're bringing hot, attractive women back. You know? Glad to see the pendulum swinging, but at the same time, I'm very concerned about how far it's going to swing, but it's nice to see that we're returning back to status quo.
Is the culture truly healing, or are we about to go into a deep financial recession? Questions we should be asking. Angry Reddit freaks also doxed Sydney, looking through her voting records and found out she is a registered Republican. One of the most common things I saw about this were how, like, all the women getting mad about Sydney Sweeney were ugly, and I don't think that's true. There were some, like, pretty people in there. But it got onto this topic that I see all the time, and that is, why are liberal women so ugly? Leftists are ugly, conservatives are hot, which is not true, by the way. I was at January 6th, okay? But, for the most part, stereotypes exist for...
even women have been bitching and whining about this. Why is all of the attractive men that I keep swiping right on seem to be conservative? Why is that a thing? And it's like, I think there's an interesting correlation to be had here that we, again, I don't think we're ready to talk about. I mean, most guys have been leaning conservative for a good long while. I mean, like, we're kind of... I would say that when it comes to resources, we're just naturally more conservative. I mean, like, I'm very frugal with my spending. I mean, I have a decent savings, and I don't really promote it. I don't like to talk about it, because who does? And for some bizarre reason, I guess the Democrats don't care what level of money they throw in whatever direction, because... they live vicariously by the amount of stupid people who are willing to support them, I suppose. I don't know. It's crazy.
Reason, right? Conservatives are, well, conservative with the way that they present themselves. They tend to follow norms and beauty standards, which is why, for example, the media called Hassan a, quote, progressive in a MAGA body. And how so many women on dating apps nowadays are looking for a man who votes Democrat but looks like a Republican. Everyone is aware of the stereotypes. And with leftists, you know the stereotype, like the overweight, blue hair, nose ring. They're not all ugly, of course, but many purposely make themselves look ugly. Because being ugly is saying f you to the man. Marcel Duchamp's art piece, Fountain, which was literally just a urinal, was a f you to art institutions and classical ideas of beauty. Those f-ass ugly concrete block brutalist buildings are another example.
And those arguably serve a fucking purpose, right? They challenge standard convention, if not outright criticize the society that reportedly promotes them, right? They're criticizing the standard that is being set by people who are in positions to basically rate and value and evaluate those standards. And I feel like that makes more sense than the shit we've been seeing other people try to peddle and get away with these days. It makes no sense. That statue with just an average-looking woman isn't pushing any real convention. It's just putting a pedestal on a thing that everybody has seen at least 100 times before.
Feudalism emerged after World War II as a post-war modernist style, in part created as a you to the classical architecture celebrated by, drumroll, the Nazis. Now think of those concrete buildings and the urinal and apply it to broader society. Basically, the blue hair and nose ring is a you to, well, Sydney Sweeney. Hitler existed, so now everything has to be fat and ugly. Sorry. I don't know why so many on the left want to give the concept of beauty and health to the right, but it is not a winning strategy. Listen, I just want everyone's basic needs met, alright? I don't want people going in debt if they get into a car accident, or be homeless, or get sent to foreign wars. I didn't sign up for this stupid shit. It is funny though how like every time Sydney Sweeney is on camera, there's like a right-wing article like, woke is dead! Wokeness is no match for Sydney Sweeney's undeniable beauty. Are Sydney Sweeney's breasts double D harbingers of the death of woke? Was that girl right about conservatives being boob guys? She might have been right after all. Honestly, this doesn't really make sense because, like, the left are the ones trying to normalize porn and, like, OnlyFans culture and stuff like that. If anything, there is too much boobs everywhere. We need to calm down a bit. But when it comes to Sydney's, like, classical bombshell beauty, like, I kind of get where they're coming from. Sydney Sweeney is a hot white woman who does not mind catering to the male gaze after we had a decade of hearing about how the male gaze is bad and toxic. A decade of hearing about how white people are bad and toxic. A decade of ugly, angry, fat androgyny seeping its way into everything and anything. When people say Sydney Sweeney is anti-woke, I don't even think they mean politically. I think they just mean like Sydney Sweeney is like looking into a time portal back to 1992. A time when porn addiction wasn't such a big issue. Every woman didn't show her hole online for $5. Hookup apps didn't exist. It's like a bunch of millennials and zoomers are longing for a time they never experienced. But yes, this is a cultural shift, but not necessarily a conservative one. Just a return to, like, normalcy. A return to normal Americana consumerism. In 2065, conservatives are gonna be, like, posting people twerking, like, return! These same TikTok freaks who are attacking Sydney Sweeney have been sounding the alarm about this cultural shift for some time now. And we see a bunch of celebrities embracing, like, looking normal and healthy again. Like, Demi Lovato is a perfect example of this. She was an obese, short hair, walking stereotype, crying about a frozen yogurt place, daring to sell sugar-free frozen yogurt.
I walked in, was so triggered that I left without froyo.
To now being skinny and healthy and married, and even making a TikTok dancing happily in that same frozen yogurt place.
The singer returning to the scene of the crime Wednesday, poking fun at herself on her socials.
That's part of the reason these people are freaking out and saying, like, fascist aesthetics, because they know the chokehold they have had on culture is losing its grip. Inshallah. Once Sam Smith goes back to being normal, that's when I know the culture is healing.
I have no idea who that
American
is,
Eagle
probably
did
for
not
good reason.
bend the knee and did not apologize to the horde. In fact, they doubled down. Sydney Sweeney has great genes, is and always was about the genes. Her genes, her story. Wait a minute. Her genes, her story. HH. Uh-oh. Now, I can sit here and say the obvious, like, these corporations just want to pander to you, they just want to sell you like, yeah, obviously. But have you considered, it's good when corporations pander to me, personally? I just realized so much of American political discourse is, like, around f***ing corporations and ads. The Gillette commercial, Bud Light, Protein World. There are so many examples, like, it's just crazy how so much of our politics revolves around consuming things. I will buy blue team products. I will buy red team products. Bleak. In conclusion, we are tired of ugly. There's hot people in ads again. The white woman is back, baby. Let's go. 500 trillion more to Israel. Nobody can afford a fucking house. World is run by pedophiles. But woke is dead, baby. That's what I'm talking about. Hell yeah. So if you like this video, please subscribe and maybe donate to me on Patreon. Link down below. All Patreon members get the uncensored version of every single video a day early. So you get to hear all the fucks and shits uncensored. If you can't or don't want to do that, there's also a little tip jar down below. You can leave a little tip, and I will give it a little heart. It helps the channel out, and I appreciate it so much. Also, big shout out to Holtzkern again for sponsoring this video. Check them out, link down below, and I will see you very soon with a new video. Bye!
Ay, ay, ay. I held back at the last bit. I have an ending thought on this.
Sydney Sweeney, a registered Republican, has the hottest...
Oh, I remember this tweet.
I cannot do a Trump impression to save my life. Okay.
Covering Warhammer can very quickly...
Yeah, no, let's just pause that for a second there. So, ending thoughts. The thoughts to put a kibosh on this.
So, if you've been living...
Since we're finally going back to norm, we're finally going back to things that make sense, right? I think that the people who probably need it the most are not white people. I will admit that, you know, having conventionally attractive white women, or just attractive white women in general, in media, that's great. Nice first step. You know what we really need? We really need to bring back that same level of conventional wisdom, that level of conventional attractiveness, back to other communities, because I feel like there are some communities that have lost the plot on that one. I don't understand. Like, if it's not the internet rejects that are having problems with their own physical attractiveness, if not just downright self-esteem, or literally deluding themselves into thinking that something is considered like not even attractive, more so as empowering. It's, man, why did they conflate the two? The weirdest thing, right, I have with this whole debate, in fact, I'm just gonna go ahead and just get away from this. The weirdest thing that I have, the weirdest issue that I have with this whole sort of Sydney Sweeney thing, is that it's interesting that companies are making this attempt, because I feel like that with the pendulum swinging, I'm curious as to how far it's going to go, right? Because we're getting attractive people back in places where it makes sense to have them. How far are we going to go in this direction, right? Like, how long before we start bashing communism and we start treating communism or socialism like it's another witch hunt, right? It's just going to be under a different name and a different guise. I'm curious about this because I genuinely wonder about this. All right, we had the whole Red Scare back in the 19th century, back in the 90s, back in the 80s, and even in the 70s a little bit. Probably mostly in the 70s, actually. The whole Red Scare did happen. It did kind of come and go. But I'm kind of curious if we're going to have that again. As, you know, like, especially more so nowadays, with 10 cents in most Asian countries kind of permeating through most of Western culture. You know, like, our sense of culture and idealism is becoming congealed with the cultures of other nations that honestly should not be happening, but it is happening regardless. And I'm concerned about this to a degree. You know, back in the day, we had all types of different forms of, like, you know, like, American sort of idealism, right? We had the American sort of way of doing things. We had the American dream. We had Hollywood. We had so many different icons of American culture and value that now that those things are sputtering and dying due to the weight of their own stupidity, to be honest, it really does beg the question, what is going to take its place? And it seems like predominantly Asian cultures are taking its place so far, and I'm not sure how to feel about that. It's not necessarily a bad thing. I think some Asian culturalisms are actually really interesting, or are also really nice. Like, I totally understand the idea of honor and the value of it, even from a traditionalistic aspect, from the way the Japanese tend to do things, but I also see the errors and the comeuppance that happens when you focus too hard on trying to honor the family, trying to honor the family, the reputation, the systems in place that are perceived as the norm, right? I can understand why there are certain things about Japanese culture that would take away from the Japanese people and make living and working and just existing in Japan a fucking, an ordeal and an arduous task to begin with, right? I mean, they have an entire class of young people who are just living vicariously through their parents' money and don't bother to go out fucking side. You know, we have quite literal NEETs in Japan, and we're getting NEETs in America now. I'm kind of an example of that, and it's a very scary thing to think about. But, you know, I'm very concerned about a lot of things with our current modern-day life. I think about them all the time, you know, sometimes, and probably too much, actually. I try not to think about it too much, because the more I think about it, the more annoyed and depressed I get. But it's like, I do think about them. I do sometimes question where we're gonna go, or how things are gonna turn out. And so far, right, it's looking like things are at least kind of picking back up again, but for how long? Who knows? And it's always going to be a debate on what tomorrow is going to hold, because the world is in such a state of turbulence right now that you can't really judge how tomorrow is going to look half the time. You know, you think you'll have everything figured out one day, and then the next day suddenly something happens and it blows everything out of the water, and now suddenly you're questioning whether or not this is even a thing that needs to be bothered with, or if this is a thing that even makes sense, or if this is a thing that is just blown way too out of proportion, or if it actually makes sense, and it's reasonable to want to bitch and whine about, but most people who are in positions of power don't want to put too much emphasis on it. It's like, what the hell is even going on anymore? Anyways, yeah. Jesus Christ, that is that video. Why do women hate Sydney Sweeney by Shoe on Head? Please, again, go support the original video. Go support the original creator. Please go like, comment even, subscribe if you haven't. Please, oh please, go support the original video. I mean, I'm sure most of you people who are going to watch this are probably Shoe on Head fans to begin with, so that's not really going to be a big ask. But otherwise, thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next video. God, I kind of really just let loose on this one, didn't I? Oy, oy, oy.